I'm so happy that you're here with me.
Me too.
Um, I I have to say that something I don't know if I've ever told you, but you came into our family. You are my brother-in-law's wife, which makes you
Yeah.
my sister. And I have to say, Valentina is the kind of person that everyone could get wrong. Like people are gonna think like, she's just like this bubbly personality and has this nice smile, and it's like, like you see her maybe on the day to day and you're gonna think, oh my God, she's just like so like nice, right? But when it comes to business, it's like a whole other person,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And I feel like the fierce side of you really comes out.
You're very
So tell me a little bit about that, because I'm sure a lot of people probably haven't seen that side of you,
yeah.
in the professional world.
Yeah, that's very true. And it's very funny you say that because I was just talking Saturday with somebody about that. They started working with us recently and they knew me from before, but they had never worked with me. And they were telling me, you are like night and day with just being like your friend and just knowing you like outside of work and then working with you. It's night and day. They were telling
Mm-hmm.
me, like, take your work so seriously, like you are on a timeline and everybody else has to make sure that they're on a timeline too.
Unless you're me and Daniel and we just show up whenever.
Yeah, exactly. But hey, that's different. You guys can come whenever you want. I really don't mind. I love when
That's
that
more
happens.
personal. That's more personal.
Exactly, exactly. So, yeah, I think that to be honest with you, it started because, as you know, I'm very young. And
Yes.
I think it started when I started my career. And I started to see that because of my age, a lot of people did not take me seriously. So I said, you know what? I do not care whether you take me seriously or not. I am still going to make it happen. If you're on board, great. If not, I will find the next person that will be. So
Mm-hmm.
it just kind of like I am the bubbly person. I am really nice. I definitely like to be that way. And I want everybody to get to know that side of me because I like to make people feel included in whatever it is I'm doing. If there's a spot for you in what I'm doing, you are welcome to have it as long as you prove that you are worthy of that spot, right? But I am the
Right.
kind of person that is, if I am a few steps up from you, I will always be happy to extend my hand and bring you up with me. You just got to make sure that you demonstrate that you are worthy of being where I am or that you are capable of running at the same speed. Because precisely since I didn't have a lot of people take me seriously when I started my career, I realized that like I literally was dragged through the mud so that
Mm-hmm.
I could prove that I was worthy of being where I am now or having the connections that I have now. So it was a lot of work to get to where I am. And I feel like the other side of me, or the side that most people don't get to see, which is the work related side, it was birthed or rooted exactly in that moment where I realized, like, you know what? In this world, I'm going to have to do so much, go the not even the extra mile, the 100 extra miles in order for others to realize what I'm capable of doing of work or what I bring to the table.
Right.
So if you were to ask me, like, when did you realize that you are so different when it comes to your personal relationships and your business relationships? I would definitely say it was there.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I love it because you prove everyone wrong, and I love that about you. Like if anyone ever doubted you, it's like, well, proved you're wrong.
Yeah.
And I think but one of the main things I wanted to talk about was, you have a lot of experience in business. So that's kind of what you've done from like a very young age.
Yeah.
I'm not even gonna tell people the age because they'd be shocked. And so what you've learned in the past, I don't know how many years it's been now, but let's say 6 years at least. What are some key fundamentals that you have learned are necessary for someone that wants to start a business or is in business already that you need to actually be successful in whatever business that you are in?
So that's actually a really good question. I feel that it definitely has like bullet points. It's not like the one thing that you need. I definitely think that it's a complex formula, and there's a lot of things that go into building a successful company. I have been in business for about 8 years now, and out of those 8 years, 6 of those have been on my own. I would definitely say I am a serial entrepreneur. I love business. It's something that like gets me up every single day. I am excited about what I do, and I really do give it my all. So the things that I think are fundamental for people to understand in order to achieve a certain success within any kind of company, there are several, and I'll just kind of give you like a small rundown of the things that I consider are super important. And I'm actually going to pull up a document that we have within our company. This is the document that we usually share with our clients when we are in the onboarding process. So I'm just going to pull that up real quick so that I can tell you exactly the ones that I consider are very important to build a successful company. So I definitely think that these bullet points that I'm going to give you are not only essential to build a successful company, but also to understand just how the business world works. Um, and those are people essentials, sales essentials, finance essentials, leadership essentials, marketing essentials, and legal essentials. So those are the 6 main things that I would say people really need to focus on when they are at a certain level in business or just starting. Get a basic understanding of what these areas mean for them individually in whatever company they have.
Right.
So within the people essentials, I definitely see a lot of companies nowadays very disengaged with their employees, or employees very disengaged with their management, and they're just in this constant like just how do you even what's the right term for that? I would say the right term is like this constant rat race where they just can't get off the wheel, right? Like you wake up, you go to a job that you hate, you are literally not feeling accomplished, you come home and you like dump all that in your family. And same thing for the management. A lot of the times I've seen it in the companies that we've helped over the past few years, it's that management are they're so disengaged from their company that to an extent they don't even care anymore.
Right.
So if you are in front of a company, if you are in front of a team and you don't care what's going on within your company, or you just feel like you've got too much going on and there's a disengage, that's going to affect everything else in your company. So you need to make sure that you keep business and personal extremely apart. Even if you work with family, even if you work with your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your husband, your wife, whoever it is you work with, your brothers, your siblings, you need to make sure that there are two separate cabinets. Like when it's work, and when it's pleasure. But don't let them mix, because when people let them mix, that's when they usually start to see their business fall in some sort of area, whether that's revenue, whether that's employee engagement, whatever it is. Like you will cause problems within your organization for not keeping those two tabs separated. And that's one thing that I had to learn because I work with my husband and I've worked with him since the pretty much beginning of my entrepreneurial career. Um, and it was something that thankfully we get on the same page very quickly. So I think that that's just something that the Lord gave us. And I appreciate the Lord gave us that in a huge way, because it's definitely helped a lot. But I'm not going to say we haven't had our disagreements, because we certainly have had, and not
For
just
sure.
one or two, definitely close to a million. So you just got to understand who's the head, right? And I feel like that works for family as much as it works for business. It's simply an organization, and you just need to understand who's the head. So let's say, like in our case, my husband was the head of the business. He was the CEO.
Right.
And there was some things that I didn't necessarily agree with, and I would run my ideas through him, and he would say, you know what, yeah, you're right, we should do that instead. And we would take that approach. But some other times it was like, I don't agree, and this is what we're going to do. And it would get frustrating, because I'm like, why aren't you listening to me? I'm your wife. But
Right.
that's not the case. At work, I was not his wife. I was his business partner. I was his
Right.
colleague. And there's a certain level of respect and a certain level of communication that needs to be had there, that it's not the same as the one you have in marriage.
Right.
So it's not impossible to work with your spouse, but it certainly is a process. You need to learn their patterns of communication. You need to learn their patterns, different patterns. There's pattern recognition. There's patterns that you need to just make sure that you are very aware, like what triggers my spouse in business, right? What triggers me in business? What triggers my employees? And how do I go about making sure that those things don't happen? And if they happen, how to handle them properly.
Right. And I think that right now, kind of the generation that we're a part of, triggers is like a really big word right now.
Yeah.
And typically triggers, people think of it as like it brings you back to something in your past. And it usually is like a negative word, right? Like, oh, I'm triggered. That means like run away because
Yeah.
something bad is going on. But I feel like triggers sometimes could also be positive, where you realize, wow, this person is reminding me of something else maybe someone else said about me, or an experience, like a good experience that you had in the past, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so with like one of the things I want to talk about with what you were mentioning with your husband, what would be like, what are some of the advice you would say, other than what you've already said, because you gave me pretty good advice there, is what would you say would benefit someone that is for you to positively trigger maybe your spouse if you are in business together, or not even a spouse, like maybe if you're in business just with family, because family and like personal and professional get really mixed up and sometimes very difficult to separate the two, like what you were saying. So are there like some advice you would give to people that maybe just don't know how to do that yet?
Yeah, I would say that I've learned the hard way that you need to know how they communicate. Like, you need to know that you're speaking their language so your message gets across properly. Because it happened with me and my husband a lot in the beginning. Like, we would not understand each other because we were simply not speaking the same language. And I'm not necessarily talking about like English, because we are bilingual. I'm just simply talking about what is it that I'm saying to him that I need him to understand. But how do I make sure I say it in a way that he's going to understand? Because miscommunication happens. It happens in marriage. It happens in business. It happens every day. In a simple conversation, like if you're just
Yep.
talking to a friend and you just don't give enough information, it's going to cause a miscommunication. But in business, miscommunication causes confusion, and confusion causes disengagement. So this is a simple pattern that it's standard for anyone in any industry. If there is not a clear path of communication, there's going to be confusion, and confusion will create disengagement. That disengagement is what we want to try and avoid. And if we have it, how do we address it properly? So my biggest advice would definitely be to learn how others communicate, how others understand what you're trying to say, and talk to them in that language. To give you an example, I remember clearly, we had one of our commercial accounts when we owned a company in the service industry. We had one of our commercial accounts that was asking for a quote on new equipment, right? And they needed this huge industrial equipment. And I got that phone call directly to my office at the time. It didn't go through our main office, they just had my direct line. They called me and they say, "Hey, Valentina, we need a quote for all new industrial equipment." I said, "Okay, great, that's fine. I'll get one of our guys out there. We'll take notes and we'll see what we can do for you." So I called at that time Juan, and I said, "Hey, this person wants all new industrial equipment." And he had one of our guys go out there. They got a inventory list done. We sent over a quote. And when they called Juan about that quote to review it together, they're like, "Yeah, this is not exactly what we were looking for." So I took responsibility for that because I didn't initially gather all the information that I needed to gather from the client. So I caused confusion because I didn't have laid out the information properly. And I knew better. There's systems and processes in place within a business that it's also super important. And I just missed my checklist. right? I didn't gather the information that I needed to. And when I passed it along to the rest of my team, it created confusion. And that confusion then went all the way like full circle to my client. And we definitely want to avoid those kinds of situations. So number one is definitely make sure that communication is very clear. And number two, make sure that you have systems and processes within your company that make it easy to create that clear path of communication.
I love that. You keep saying that like disengagement. Disengagement seems to be like a really important word. So what would yeah. So what would you say what advice would you give to people that have employees that are disengaged, business partners that are get disengaged, or even family that are disengaged? Because I feel like it all translates. Like you could
Yeah,
learn from all of
exactly.
it.
You can use any of this advice that we've kind of been talking about for anything, whether that's business or family. It's literally, you're able to use it all across the board, which is really nice because it helps improves all your relationships across the board, whether that's your marriage, your business partners, with your employees, whatever it is. So we currently we've had for about the past year and a half a business consulting firm. And I've realized that a lot of the businesses that we've helped, if not all of them, deal with employee and business partner disengagement, which means simply that there seems to be a person that is more committed than the other, right? So they go the extra mile, they do the extra work, they don't complain as much, they are simply there on time, which is a
Right.
big thing. And I've seen that disengagement really just the root of it, it's confusion. So if you have a business partner or you have an employee that is disengaged, you need to address the root of that disengagement. So they must be confused within a process within your company. They don't know their responsibilities clearly enough, and you have them doing a ton of other things that they didn't think initially were part of their job description. So there's some sort of frustration that comes from that confusion and ultimately creates disengagement. So you just got to go back and find within our company, we have our own developed strategy to find exactly where the root of that disengagement is. And we call this ICF. And it's individual, career, and financials. So we sit down with a person and we talk to them about them individually, right? So who are you as a person? What is it that you like to do? How is your family environment? Then we go on to careers. Okay, so what is it that you want to get out of your career? Where do you see yourself in 5 to 10 years professionally? And then financially, where is it that you are financially right now? Does it look exactly like you wanted it to be at this age, or do you feel behind or ahead? So there's so many questions that go within this strategy that we've developed that allowed us to really look and see inside of each employee and each manager or supervisor and say, okay, this is exactly where the root of this problem is. But again, it falls back on communication. This is something that you can do, right? You can talk to your business partner. And I learned from my grandma when I was very young that it's not what you say, but how you say it.
Right.
So that advice has led me through great conversations in my marriage, great conversations in business. So always remember that. If there's one thing that you take away from this conversation today, let it be that it's not what you say, but how you say it. So if you have a difficult conversation that you need to have with an employee, a business partner, a spouse, family member, whatever, always make sure that you are speaking clearly, but also nicely. Because if you get like super hostile, nobody's going to want to have a conversation with you, and you're not going to end up anywhere other than increasing the confusion, ultimately increasing the disengagement. So just sit down, have a nice conversation, explain where you're coming from, and have proof to back up why you're saying what you're saying, right? So if you're talking to an employee that seems disengaged, hey, I noticed that you've been late for the past month, and here are the times that you clocked in, right? You're supposed to be here at 8 o'clock, and for a whole month you've been here at 8:09, 8:10, 8:11. And I've also seen that you have this many tasks that are assigned to you on a daily basis, and you're not accomplishing those. And here are the ones that have been kind of left behind ever since the beginning of the month. Just
Right.
have proof to back up what you're saying. So it doesn't feel like you're just coming at them. It actually feels like you have proof, and they won't feel like the victim anymore, because it's not a he said, she said situation. There's actual evidence.
Right. It stops being emotional
Yes.
and it goes into facts, right? But one of the things you were saying with, it's not what you say, but how you say it. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the way you say things has a lot to do with your attitude
Oh, yeah.
and like your heart, right? Because when you're speaking to, and in business, right? I feel like in business, when you're a woman in business, to be, I feel like a lot of times we have very masculine energy, like very
Oh,
dominant,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
right? And so sometimes when we play into the feminine energy, it actually gets us farther.
Oh,
Be-
I totally agree with you.
so how have you used that? Because I mean personally, I mean I know Valentina personally, and I know she can go into masculine and feminine, but I think I often am a lot into like the dominant side in the business, but I've learned that the feminine side, it's like that's where you say things and you say it in a way
Yeah.
that people will receive it and will apply what you're telling them. So how have you done that?
So to me, I feel like that dominant energy kind of comes from being in industries that are very, very male dominant.
Right.
So it's not a bad thing, right? Embrace the fact that you're able to meet them where they are, because not a lot of the times, not even their own business partners or their own colleagues that are also
Right.
males can meet them there. So just see it as a strength. If you are a woman and you're listening to this podcast, just know that you need to embrace the fact that you're able to do that. And if you're a man, don't get offended. You all do wonderful things, but as
That's
women,
the feminine.
yeah, that's the feminine in me being like, okay, don't get upset. This is for you too. But we, as women, we have, I would say, a double-edged sword, right? And it can work for good and it can work for bad too. So it all depends on how you use it. But to me, I realized I also had that dominant energy when I started working in male dominated industries, and they would not take me seriously. Kind of goes back to the same thing that we were talking about in the beginning. They would not take me seriously, and I was like, you know what? I will meet you right where you are. But then I realized that a lot of the times that kind of behavior is not the best when you're trying to get a point across, right? They need to realize that they are not talking to another guy. So
Right.
they are not, they cannot be disrespectful. They cannot treat you the way they would treat another guy. You also need to set the boundaries of how it is you want to be treated in the professional world. Because if you just out there with your full blown dominant energy and you never take it down a notch, that will also be a problem for you, because when you build a name for yourself and when you are somewhere in your career and you need somebody to kind of talk to you in a more calm way, in a more understanding way, they're not going to be able to do that for you, because within your company you've already built that culture of just complete dominancy. And that's
Right.
not good, right? You want to make sure that there's a good balance there. So embrace the fact that you're able to do both, and learn before you answer anything, whether that's to a man or a woman. Before you answer anything, think to yourself, what is the right way to deal with the situation? And it took me a long time to get into that habit, because I want things done fast. I am a highly productive person and I like things to be on schedule. And if we're behind, our competition is ahead. That's what I've always said. But I also realized, you know what? I can't put that kind of stress in my team. I need to make sure that we're all speaking the same language, and I can't rush them into products that are not going to be perfect for our clients. So
Right.
I'm going to take down my super dominant energy and I'm going to come in with my girly, calm, Pacific energy, and be like, okay, you know what? Where is it that we're failing? right? Where
Right.
is it that we have a disconnect and that's why we were not able to meet our goal or not able to reach what we wanted to reach in the time frame that we had originally set up? And also that kind of brings me to something else that's super important within business is being realistic with your goals. If you have a goal of making your first $500,000, your first million, your first 2, 3, 5, 10 million, if you have a business that's making $10,000 a year, don't give yourself $1 million goal by the end of the year because it's highly not going to happen
Right.
unless you accidentally kind of like stumble into a gold mine
Gold
and
mine.
somehow you end up there. But it's not likely going to happen that way, right? For
No.
the most
No.
part, we don't go viral overnight success and overnight fame and then all of a sudden you wake up driving a Rolls Royce. That's not how
No.
it works in the real world, right? In
No.
the real world, you got to put in the effort, you got to put in the work, and it takes time. So be realistic with your goals because if you're giving your $10,000 team $1 million goal and you're only giving them 3 months, they're likely not going to hit that goal. And
Right.
not hitting that goal is going to create frustration because you're going to be mad, they're going to be mad, and it's just not going to cultivate the right environment for your team. So if you have a $10,000 team, maybe give them, and it's 3 people, maybe give them a $30,000 goal, right? So they are able to duplicate what they had already done. So push them, but not overdo it. So push them to be the best they can be with a realistic goal that works for your company, but don't overdo it to an extent where you know it's unrealistic, right? And I'm not saying like don't believe in your goals. I'm not saying that. I'm simply saying be strategic as to how you get to them so that you don't burn out. Because a lot of entrepreneurs will burn out precisely because they didn't plan accordingly and they just went straight for the $1 million goal. And honestly, it takes a lot more than just setting a $1 million goal to actually get there. We've had the wonderful opportunity to be at that point, and when you look back, it's a lot more work than you initially thought when you said, okay, I want to make X amount of money.
Right.
It takes a lot more work. So be strategic. Okay, I want to make $1 million. I'm going to and I have a business that's currently doing 100,000. I'm going to start by setting myself a goal of 300. Okay, that's fine. How do we actually get to those additional 200 that we need? So just be strategic as to how you get to your goals so that you and your team don't burn out. That's super important.
And let's talk about that. Let's talk about goals because I think a lot of people are on social media and social media is just a lie. It's just a
It's
fantasy world.
yeah.
It's really like I don't play video games, but for people that do, it's like you're in a virtual reality. You are in
Yeah.
a it's just another world. It's not
Yeah.
the real world.
Exactly.
And you hear of people that if they actually did achieve their goal in record time, which Valentina and her husband have, okay, because the goals that they have achieved, I mean, it's not something you typically hear of, um, but right, it took longer than I
Oh yeah.
believe
Oh yeah.
than you probably would think just if you're scrolling through social media, right?
Oh
Half of it, or I don't know what the numbers, but I'm sure most of it is a lie, and then
oh
some of
yeah.
the ones that are actually real, like you're saying, it takes a lot more work than what you anticipate because you're comparing yourself to someone that, I mean, I mean, Valentina's not even on social media,
No.
so
And that's what I was going to say. Like, I am not on social media because I found myself in a point where I was constantly comparing myself and my life to other people's lives.
right.
And I am so sorry, but now that I haven't been on social media for a while, it's been the best thing I did. I honestly, like, my husband keeps showing me videos and he will like copy the URL of the video and text it to me so I can see it if he wants me to see something. And I'll happily do that for him, you know? But it got to a point where I realized it was being toxic for me.
Right.
And I simply didn't want to face that. I didn't want to continue in that toxic circle where it was just like, I go on social media, I spend a ridiculous amount of time there, then I feel behind on my day, then I'm complaining about everything, I'm comparing myself to everyone, I get nothing done.
Right.
So that was how it's been for me. And I know that there's tons of people out there that might feel the same way because I've seen it, right? I've talked to people that tell me that social media, the way they talk to me about it is the same way I'm talking to you about it right now. And if you're in social media and it doesn't happen to you, that's fine. That's perfect. Good for you. But that's what happened to me. And I'm just talking from my personal perspective. And it actually started when I became a mom. That's when it started. Because before that, I was fine looking on social media and not necessarily comparing myself. But when I became a mom, the responsibility is very different. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I am an extremely responsible person in business, but now that I have a daughter, I've adapted the responsibility level that I now have as a mom into business as well. And one of the reasons why I was able to scale the way I did in the past few years is precisely because being a mom taught me so much that I could apply to business. But to go back to social media, I started comparing myself to all the other moms out there that kind of had kids at the same time I did. How fast were their kids walking? How fast were their kids getting into solids? For how long they were breastfeeding? How they're quote unquote bounced back into their pre-baby body, and all these things that are so real. And
Right.
there is no shame in talking about this because there's so many others out there that are feeling the same way, and they need to hear this.
I
They
think
need.
every mom,
Oh yeah, if yes, that's so true.
every mom, even if they're not on social media.
Yes, every single person and every single mom specifically that is on social media, and even if she's not, there will be moments where you will compare yourself to others. But
Right.
trust me, nobody is a better mom to your baby than you are. That's why God gave them to you. Same thing with your business. Nobody is a better boss to your employees than you are. You just got to keep working on yourself so you can be the best you can be for you and for them. Same thing with being a mom. You just got to keep
Right.
working on yourself so you can be the best you can be for you, for your baby, for your husband. It's the same thing. As long as you are focused on what it is you're doing for yourself, everything else will kind of follow suit. So if you're on social media because you run a business, like you, for example, Maritza, you're on social media because you run a business and a lot of that business is geared towards social media. You have a schedule for yourself where a lot of the times, if you're on social media, it's business related.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what works for you, right? So if there's somebody out there that's like, okay, I have a business, but I find myself kind of going through this like endless loop of Instagram scrolling, then set yourself a schedule, right? Be like, okay, I'm going to go on social media to promote my business or talk with others, do a live, whatever it is you need to do. And I'm going to do it from X time to X time, and just kind of start getting yourself on a schedule where your mind realizes, okay, I was actually spending a lot of time doing X, Y, and Z that now I can use to my benefit in improving who I am as a person so that I can be a better me, a better me for my family, a better me for my business. Because it's the same thing. Like, no one is a better mom to my daughter than I am. And I trust that now because I understood this. But before, I didn't. And I was like, oh my gosh, Olivia's not walking yet. She's not doing this yet. She's not on solids yet. She's not doing this or that. And then I realized I'm stressing my own self and the development of my daughter.
Right.
Like, literally, I'm slowing it down by constantly comparing it to others. Same thing with business. You're slowing down the development of your company because you're constantly comparing your business to others, comparing your life to others. It's the same thing. So
How did
to me,
you were talking about, and I'm sorry to interrupt you,
oh
but
no, okay.
you mentioned that some of the things that you learned from being a mom, you translated that over into business.
Yes.
And I'm curious as to what those things were because, I'm not a mom but I do know plenty of people my age that are moms. And so I would like to know, like, what did you learn from being a mom that helped you in business?
So much. But to to try and make it like bite size, I would say that one of the things that helped me the most with being a mom was accountability. Like nobody was going to be there for my daughter like I had to be. And
Right.
at the time I had my daughter, I already had a team. I already had employees. I already had an assistant. So a lot of the times as business owners, and it's fine when these things happen as long as you recognize them and are able to kind of get back up from them and move forward the right way. It's so easy to kind of be like, okay, I'm not going to do this. I'm just going to give it to X person. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to give it to Y person. And to me, being a mom, one of the most important things that it taught me that I was able to translate into business was accountability. Like nobody is going to do this for her other than me. Same thing in business. Nobody is going to do this for my company other than me. So accountability was a huge one. Um, I would also say that one of the most important things that I was able to translate between being a mom and a business owner was compassion. Because
Mm.
sometimes we're just so hard on our team or on our spouse if we work with them, or our business partner or our boss, whatever it is. We are just so hard on them because we lack that touch that, okay, you know what? They might be going through something as well. So let me just bring it down a notch. I'm going to be a little more understanding, a little more compassionate. So now instead of like my first meeting being like, you did this wrong, I would be like, hey, what happened that caused you to react this way? Right? Because to me, something I'm doing with my daughter, and again, this, please, moms, do not feel like if you're not doing it, you're not doing the right thing, because it's not true. This is something that I like to do with my daughter is I just sit down and talk to her, right? If they tell me at school, hey, Olivia did this today. She pushed one of her classmates in the playground. I would just sit down with her and I'll be like, hey, honey, why did you push your friend in the playground? Is everything okay? Why did you react that way? Just try and understand where that came from. And I also learned that for business. I do that with my employees. Now I do that with my business partners. Now I do that with, instead of me just coming like pointing my finger first, okay, you know what? Let's take a step back and let's talk about it. What made you get here, right? And even my daughter at her very young age, she's able to tell me like they took my toys. Okay, maybe your teacher didn't see that. Next time, instead of pushing your friends, go tell your teacher. They're able to help communicate between the two of you. So it's something that I like to do because it's so important. Like I want her to know that her voice matters, that I will give her a place to speak her voice any day, anytime. And it's so important to raise our kids to do that in this generation. Like this generation just wants everything now. And it's
Mm-hmm.
so reactive, so
Mm-hmm.
reactive. And that's not good. We can't be that way. We need to be compassionate about others and understand where they're coming from. So that is a huge thing for me, and I feel like accountability and being compassionate is two of the biggest things that being a mom has helped me also do within my company.
I love that because I mean, you're a great listener because I remember we went out to lunch when we were on that Christmas vacation in
Oh yeah,
Knoxville. We
yes.
went out to lunch and I'm like, "Guys, I have a test because, that's something I would do." And I'm like, I told her and Juan, her husband, like, "Hey, okay, this is a test I'm gonna do. It's gonna test how good of a listener you are, right?" And
I love it.
Valentina got it first shot, guys, first shot. And I was shocked because I was like, that only like 5% of people like will get it on the first shot. And I was like, you and Daniel both got it on the first shot. And so I think being a good leader, is good salesperson,
Oh
a
yeah.
good mother, a good wife, like anything, you have to be a good listener.
Yes.
And I believe you are a good listener. And
Thank you.
so what like I am not the best listener, guys. I'm sorry. Like just if you didn't know that about me, I'm not I'm trying though. I'm working on it. But like, even just listening to you now, I'm like, wow, like there are no thoughts in my head. I'm just like, okay, I'm just like listening to what you're saying.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to someone like myself that is like, we're really good at like talking, we're really good at that. But sometimes we fail in the listening department, and that's just being honest. And what would you say to someone that, if you're trying to get good at sales, if you're trying to be a good leader in any area of life, listening is important, because that's
Yeah.
what allows you to have compassion and understand the other person.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just assuming what they're saying, but you're really not paying attention.
Yes.
So what's some key, like something, and really it's for myself, but in case it helps anyone else, that would be great too.
Well, I think that I was not always a good listener. I will tell you that. That's one thing that I know for sure. And growing up, it gave me a lot of problems not being a good listener, because I would find myself in these uncomfortable situations where I knew better, but because I didn't pay attention or I didn't listen properly, it would create some sort of problem for me, whether that was with my parents, with my sister, whether that was with like other family members in school. So I remember I had a teacher that he was my math teacher, and we were, I think it was like seventh grade. So he once he just sat down. He was like, we're not going to do anything math related today. I just want to teach you guys something that's going to help you for the rest of your life. And I was like, wow, that's like the first time somebody says this ever, so I think I'll listen. And he said, common sense is the least sense of all. And I still remember that till this day, because sometimes I see people do things and I'm like, wow, where was their common sense? Or I
Mm-hmm.
do things and I'm like, where was my common sense? And I do think he had a point back then and still now. And I think that one of the most important things to become a good listener is simply being interested in what other people have to say. Just find interest in getting to know that person. It's like when you're dating whoever it is you're dating, right? Um, you need to find them interesting. You
Right.
need to, and you pay attention to them.
100%.
So it's the same thing. It's the same thing. Common sense, right? If I need to learn something from this person, or if I want to be able to understand where this person is coming from, I need to find them interesting. I need to find what they're saying interesting. And it's not always going to be that way, but you need to push yourself to do that. Right? You need to, if you're talking to somebody, if you're in an interview, if you're interviewing somebody, it's not always the most interesting scenario, but it needs to be, because it's for your company's well-being. So make sure that you're listening. Make sure that you are finding something that's interesting in the conversation, and just hang on to that. Be like, okay, if you're in an interview or you're you're having a conflict resolution conversation with somebody, or you're just simply wanting to get to know your employees, your friends, your kids, husband, whatever. If you want to get to know them better, just find something interesting. You guys don't have to have it in common. You just need to find something interesting. You need to know what it is they're interested in. And that is something that's helped me so much. Common sense and finding something that they say, something that they do interesting. That helps a lot in becoming a better listener. Just have them talk about that thing that you consider as interesting. Like you've told me a few times through our conversation, you said this, can you elaborate on that more? Right? Just like that. Just like that. So you are becoming a better listener simply by the fact that you're able to, through your common sense, find something interesting that the other person is saying. It doesn't
Right,
have to be
right.
super complicated. It just has to be something that you can continue to elaborate on.
It's just that it's not that other people aren't interesting, because I actually find other people fascinating. And that's the whole
Yeah.
point of me doing the podcast, because
Yeah.
I am thoroughly interested in other people. But I just, it sometimes just certain things don't come naturally
Yeah.
for you,
Yeah.
And so you have to work on improving because to me, it's a skill. I mean, listening,
Yeah.
in my opinion, is a skill. And I can be good. I'm just not always that way. And so I think that that actually makes a lot of sense what you were saying. And I think also there is a humility in being a good listener,
Yeah.
because that means you feel or you believe that you can learn something from the other person.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And so I think that that also ties into it. But another thing I wanted to ask you, that I'm sure other people that I know, people that are like in business, moms, still have a 9 to 5 job, but do like a separate business, like on the side or something. How do you handle time management? When,
Whew.
yeah, I know, because time management is a big thing, right? Like we only have 24 hours
It's
in the
a
day.
huge thing.
So
It's a
how do
huge
you do it? Because I don't even know how many businesses you run anymore. I don't even ask you anymore, because I'm like, she's just doing something else, like whatever they're doing. I don't know. They're always juggling like a million things. So I don't even know at this point. I will ask her, but I know you have at least 3 businesses going
yeah.
on. So aside from that, and you're a mom and you're a wife, so how do you handle the time management side?
It's very hard. And till this day, I still deal with a lot of like consequences of not managing my time properly. Like I'm not going to tell you like with other parts of our conversation where I feel like I currently have a good grip on that. I'm not going to say that time management it's like my top 3 because it's certainly I still deal with some things related to time management. But what helps me a lot is simply planning my day out. That helps me so much. And not being lazy. Laziness is a big part of why people don't get things done and why they're not able to manage their time properly.
Right.
And honestly, like sometimes you're not going to feel like it. Most times you're not going to feel like it. As a business owner, let me tell you, you're not going to feel like it. But it's your responsibility to do it. Half the battle is won when you show up. So make sure that to me, what works is planning my day. So it doesn't have to be followed to the second because before that's what I thought I had to do and it never worked out.
She even had a rest time, just so you guys know. If
I
not, she
did.
won't rest.
Yeah, exactly. Like Marissa knows this so well. Like I would literally like plan out my day to the second where I literally had to schedule in rest time. Like how crazy is that?
What? I laughed too hard. Oh my
Seriously.
God.
And that's why I had to schedule time to rest because I was not good with my time. I am much better now than I was before and I plan to continue to improve that area. If you ask me like what is something that you want to continue to work on or what's something that you're currently working on, it will definitely be time management. But what works for me is just having my priorities for the day, right? Like my must do, my have to do, and my would be nice if I get to. Those are like the 3 things that I literally do every day. Okay, today I must do a podcast with Maritza. I must send out this document. I must sign this document. I must spend time with Olivia because she's in spring break and it's the first time ever that I have a kid that has spring break. So I'm taking it down a notch a little bit this week and spending my afternoons with her a little bit more, right? I won't get this time back. So those are the 3 things that I do is my must do's, my have to do's, and my would be nice if I get to things, right? And that works for me with work. That works for me with my personal life, and it's simply something that I learned from somebody else, and it's worked for me great. Just and I'm not overwhelming myself like my must do like 25 things. No, I really prioritize. What is it that I must get done today? Like if today is over and I don't do this one thing, I can have really negative consequences. So what are those things? And then I set them up. It's usually like 3 to 4 things that I can accomplish within my day and they'll usually be done before noon comes around. And then my must do's, those are in the morning. My have to do's are usually in the afternoon, right? So and then my would be nice too if maybe I get everything done really early, then I can squeeze in a few other things. But those are usually like 2 or 3 because I'm really busy on my must and my have. So be realistic. Same thing with your goals. Same thing with your time management. Like, don't cram up everything because ultimately it's not going to work. And then you're going to be all over the place. And nothing good ever comes out of being all over the place. So just realize what it is fundamental for you to get done today. And then kind of work your way into something that could potentially work for you. That's just what works for me right now. And it's a work in progress, but so far so good.
That's very wise advice, I would have to say. I've never heard someone break it down like that. And, I believe Valentina and myself, like, we're both high performers. Like, that it is what it is. We have a desire to be productive, but I don't know if you've done this in the past, Valentina, but I have. And it's like you put, like, 40 things that you have to get done. And it's like, wait, it's too much. It's too much.
Of course I've done that. Of course I've done that.
And then you're like, I can't run on this.
To rest. Like, if you used to schedule time to rest, you 100% had like 1,000 lists that you needed to get to in one day.
Yeah. And it's like, no, it's not. And
so work. It's not realistic at all. It doesn't work. Like, and then you just keep pushing everything from today to tomorrow, and from tomorrow to the following day, from the following day to the day after, and then you're like 3 months in and you never got to that one thing. It's not realistic. It's simply not.
And what's funny though is a lot of times we push the things that we don't like doing, or what you might be good at it, but you don't like doing it, or we push the things that we're not good at and we know that and we don't want to do it. So what would you say is like your superpower in business? Because I feel like you're very good at a lot of different things, right? Like, you're very gifted in a lot of different aspects in business, but what would you say like your superpower is in business? Like, in what side of the business do you like? Do you actually enjoy it? And you're actually really good at doing it.
This is going to sound super obnoxious, but I honestly don't care. I love everything about business. But I know there's certain things that I excel at and some others that I'm not so good at. So my husband is the visionary. And that is 1,000% the truth. I've come to terms with that. He is the visionary. He has a very clear vision of where it is we're going. And with the companies, with our lives, with our marriage, with our daughter, like, he is a visionary. And I am the kind of person that is really good at strategizing. How do we get there?
The integrator.
Yes, I am an integrator. That's definitely where I was going with this. It's something that I feel I'm very good at, and it's my main responsibility on our consulting business, is getting down on my hands and knees with the business owners and finding out where is it that they want to go, and then it's my responsibility to find out actionable steps to get them there. So that is, I would definitely say that if there's one thing that I definitely excel at in business, is creating actionable plans to take you from point A to point B. That's one thing that I'm really good at, and I really enjoy it, like, very much so.
Operations, I would say, right? So it's like Juan could be the CEO if we're talking about C-suite.
Yeah.
Valentina would be COO, right? Which, to be honest, look, I've read a lot about this visionary integrator thing. A visionary is nothing without an integrator. Like, let's just be real, like, here.
Yeah, and also an integrator is nothing without a visionary.
Yes, because you need clarity. Like, where are we going here? So I think that it's a good pair of the two, because a visionary can have this great vision, but they don't think about step 1, 2, and 3. Yes. The integrator thinks, okay, you gave me the vision. Now let's do step 1, 2, and 3. This is how we're going to do it. Yeah. But if you have no vision, like you said, also, like, I could do this, I could do that. I mean, I could do a million things. So I think it's a great pair, like you two together.
And another thing that, for example, I'm not good at being creative. Like, That
I would
really,
doubt that. I would doubt that,
uh,
but okay.
not honestly, like I don't like, maybe in other things, yes, but like I am creative in like business to come up with solutions on the fly because I am a very solutions oriented person. But if you were to give me like a marketing task, like come up with marketing material, I would be like, oh, I am definitely outsourcing this, even if it's in my own dime, because I don't know a thing about creative marketing. Like I can't do that. Most of our marketing, most of our like creative campaigns and all of those things, like that's somebody else because I am simply not good at that. But Juan is super creative. Like he is super creative. And I think it goes hand in hand with being a visionary. But yeah, he's super creative. So it's something that he is good at that I'm not so good at. And it works for the both of us. You know, you just got to learn. Yes. Yeah. And you got to learn how to lean on your strength and not necessarily like always be like pointing your finger at yourself like, oh, I'm not good at this, I'm not good at this. There's so much that you're good at. You just got to find out what that is.
And
And
just focus
honestly,
on that.
yeah, just run with it. After that, like Juan and I have a thing that we've said from day one, and I think it's one of the things that I love the most about him, and one of the things that like literally made me fall in love with the guy. He's always said, commit now, figure it out later. So that's, and a lot of people used to make fun of him. And they're like, oh, that's not realistic. That sounds like such a fun thing to say, like this and that. The guy got it done, literally, by just committing now, figuring it out later. And he's always lived by that. And it took me a while to get on board with that because I was like, the integrator in me is like, well, I'm committed, but we got to like figure it out now, not later. But then I realized it really is not that complicated. Like you just literally have to commit now. Commit now. And once you found where your priorities are, which is usually aligned with your commitment, then you're going to be able to start taking actionable steps, even if they're small steps. One step is worth so much more than no steps. So commit now, figure it out later. So two things to take out of this whole conversation. It's not what you say, but how you say it, and commit now, figure it out later.
I love that. And I think it's been, I mean, a great conversation. I think a lot of people can get a lot of wise advice, you know, from what
Mhm.
you said. But I also wanted to just the last question before we let you go to your busy life. Um, Basically, I wanted to ask you if you were talking to someone that was either going to start a business or is scaling their business from, let's say, 6 figures to 7 figures, which is something that you and your husband have done, what would you tell this person that they need to do? It's really like two groups, right? Someone
Yeah.
starting out that's afraid, and then someone else, like the fear doesn't go away, but that person, and then the next person is, all right, you want to scale this? Here's one set of advice for you.
So I think that it's broken down into a few pieces. Like you need to have a very clear vision, right? You need to know why it is you want to get to that point. Why is it that it's important for me for my business to be 7 figures and not 6? Like why is that so fundamental? And if it's just about the money, let me tell you, it's not going to work out. It's
Mm-hmm.
not going to work out. And that's something that's so important for us. And the whole reason why we started our consulting business is we wanted to find people's whys. Like, find your why and stick to it. Like, literally. If you know why it is you want to get to over $1 million, it's going to help you get there. But because people just focus on the money, like they
Mm-hmm.
literally just focus, I just want $1 million. What do you want $1 million for? Oh, I don't know. It doesn't work like that. Find your why and stick to it. That is literally the best piece of advice that I can give somebody. It's it costed me a lot to just learn that. But
Yeah.
now that I do, it's so easy for me to scale any business. And precisely why we started the consulting firm. Because people just get in business just for the money. But once you
Mm-hmm.
start making good money, what do you do with it? People run through their cash like there's no tomorrow. There's people that are making gross revenue of 500, 700, over $1 million, and their net is like 25,000, like 100,000, and they're making $1 million. Like how did you get here? And I've seen it in the consultant firm a million times. They don't know their why. They don't know what they want money for. So when there's money, but there's no reason for the money, you just start going through it just because you don't know what you're going to do with it.
Right.
So you start to look for instant gratification. And that's one thing that's super important. Know your why. Why is it important for a business to get to over $1 million? And what do we do to actually get there? There's like a few set of things that are super important. Like if you're a business that it's 0 to 100,000, you're going to deal with different issues than a business that's 100 to 250. And if you're a business that's 250 to 500, it's different than 500 to 750, 750 to $1 million, and $1 million to $1.5 million. Like there's just a ladder, and at each point you're going to encounter different breakpoints that you need to know how to address. And a lot of the times what happens between the 750 to the $1 million mark is that people lose focus of their why. Why did I start my company for? Where am I going with this? And it's so fundamental, because then it just becomes about the money. And trust me, if it's just about the money, it's not going to be sustainable.
That was excellent advice. But anyways,
Thank you.
I think we're going to leave it off there. There's no better way to end that than knowing your why. And if people want to get in touch with you, you don't have social media. So what is the best, like, is there a website? Is there a number? Is there an email or something if someone wanted to get in touch with you?
My phone line, it's always open. This is my business line. And if you or somebody you know needs help with scaling their business, increasing their sales, just knowing what the right thing to do for your business is, the hiring process, the systems, anything business related, we offer different packages to all of our clients, starting a business all the way to over $5 million in revenue. So if you need help with your business, please reach out to us. It's one thing, this is our why. We don't do this for the money, because thankfully we've been able to accomplish great things in our lives. All glory to God. But we do it because we want others to experience that as well. It's so important. And so that's the best way to know how to reach me is through my phone line, 239-848-1301. Always open. And our email, mentoring@lordjuandavila.com. Super easy. And those are going to be the best 2 ways to get in contact with us.
Love it. Not a lot of people give their number out, so you better take advantage of that. Anyways, all right. Thanks. Thank you so much for coming on. And this was a great podcast. So if you guys loved it, share with someone else and pass on some wisdom that Valentina gave to all of us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Maritza. You're the best. I love you.
All right. Love you too, Valentina. Talk to you later. Bye.